Good morning, Justin. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. It's just after 9 o'clock. And I'd like to welcome you all to the 5th Annual City Tech Science Fiction Symposium with this year's important topic of race and science fiction. My name is Jason Ellis, and I'm an assistant professor of English here at City Tech. I co-organized this event with an amazing team who are all super invested in what anchors each of these events, the City Tech Science Fiction Collection, which is a 600 linear foot collection of magazines, books, and scholarship that was inaugurated by an incredible anonymous donation in 2016. My co-organizers of the event are collections management librarian Wynette Clyde, assistant professor of English Lucas Kwong, and assistant professor of English Lavelle Porter. In planning for today's event, I was thinking about Samuel R. Delaney's 1978 essay, The Necessity of Tomorrows, which covers a lot of ground. It's part autobiographical and part theoretical musing on whose tomorrows could and should be imagined in science fiction. It concludes, quote, "We need images of tomorrow, and our people need them more than most. Without an image of tomorrow, one is trapped by blind history, economics, and politics beyond our control. One is tied up in a web, in a net, with no way to struggle free. Only by having clear and vital images of the many alternatives, good and bad, of where one can go, will we have any control over the way we may actually get there in a reality tomorrow. Will bring all too quickly. And nothing gives such a profusion and richness of images of our tomorrows, however much they may need to be revised, as science fiction," end quote. We hope with this event to make a humble contribution to Delaney's call, including for Blacks, and by expanding it to all peoples of color, locating images of tomorrow by reckoning with our past and recognizing our lived experiences today. Also, when Delaney wrote this, he named only 4 SF writers who were Black like himself. So he included himself, Octavia Butler, Charles Saunders, and Steve Barnes. We want to show, especially for our students' benefit who are here today, that there is greater representation within the field as well as in the stories being told. Yet, there's still so much more to be done looking ahead. Assuredly, Delaney is right to point to SF as where we should turn for images of hope as well as warnings of despair, so that we can choose to create the best possible tomorrow for all. My co-organizers and I would like to thank the folks who helped make these events possible. First, our thanks go to the Faculty Commons, Professor Mary Ann Beal, and design intern Xavier Guerrero. Each event's poster has been designed by a City Tech student, and this year's, which is at the top of the program that I linked to earlier, was designed by Xavier. Second, we would like to thank all our presenters, panelists, moderators, and especially our keynote speaker, Dr. Jonathan Gray, for sharing their work and time with us all today. And third, we thank Dean Justin Vazquez-Poritz and the School of Arts and Sciences for continuing to support this series of symposia and the City Tech Science Fiction Symposium. Now I'd like to turn it over to Dean Vazquez-Poritz, who would like to say a few things.
Thank you, Professor Ellis. Good morning, everyone. I would like to start off by echoing Professor Ellis's words of gratitude to all of the people who have made today's event possible. And I would like to augment those words by giving my heartfelt thanks to the symposium co-organizers, of course, Professor Jason Ellis, as well as Professors Wynette Clyde, Lucas Kwong, and Lavelle Porter. And thank you to all of you, the presenters and panelists and moderators and session organizers who make this such an exciting event. During these past 5 years, it's been truly impressive to see how the symposium series has evolved, with each annual edition having its own unique aspect. This year's theme on race and science fiction is especially poignant and timely. The diversity of humanity and life experiences gives rise to intellectual and creative diversity. This is important for broadening access, but it also helps keep science fiction evolving, often in unexpected ways. I have to admit that my own retirement plan is based on reading science fiction books. I was never the practical one in my family. So I very much look forward to listening in on today's presentations and discussions. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Dean Vazquez-Poritz. We appreciate that. Before we begin with the first session, I would like to point out a few things about Zoom webinar for everyone. I mean, this is new for us. It's probably new for many of you. First, if you're familiar with Zoom, you might be wondering why there isn't a sea of faces on the screen right now. First off, we have over 190 registered attendees for this year's symposium. It's far exceeds the capacity of our previous events. So if we were to show all of you as attendees on the screen at the same time, it would be just a patchwork of many different very tiny faces. So the way the webinar is configured is we'll show only the presenters and the moderators during each session during today's symposium. Now, if you look at the bottom of your screen, in the webinar controls at the bottom of the Zoom webinar window, I want to direct your attention to the Q&A section. So if you click on that, you can see that it automatically at the bottom says, type your question here. So this pop-up window is where we're going to be collecting questions and comments throughout the day, and there'll be reminders from each of the moderators of the sessions during each session today, directing folks here. But just so everybody knows, Q&A is where we're going to be driving the discussion for each of today's events. The moderators will be looking at Q&A for your comments and questions, and then sharing those back out to the panel to invite responses. Now, in addition to Q&A, if we were to exhaust all the possible questions that appear, then there's also the option just to the right of raise hand. And just in the interest of time, because of the clicks that need to take place in order to allow folks to respond to discussion or ask questions, that'll be something that we reserve if there are no other questions in Q&A. And then one last thing about Q&A I should mention is you'll notice that after questions get asked, there's going to be a little thumbs up next to the question. And so if you look through the questions, because everyone will be able to see each other's questions, if you see a question that maybe you had thought that you were going to ask yourself or that you like, you can upvote it just like on Reddit. And so it'll drive certain questions to the top of the list that may be more popular or more on people's minds. And then finally, if you look over to the left of raise hand is chat. And I've been dropping some things in the chat before we got started. This is the main discussion area for everyone in the symposium. So like anything you type there will be seen by anyone else that's an attendee as well as a panelist. Or you can also select, instead of to everyone, just a panelist as an option. But we invite you to share thoughts, reach out to folks that you might know that are also attending today's symposium. So let's see, that's everything with the webinar that I wanted to mention. And just to close out, of course, we're living in challenging, difficult, and strange times. Zoom webinar is a strange thing to be using for what is normally an in-person event. There are a lot of moving parts and various technologies that we depend upon to make sure it all works. There might be problems and breakdowns today. If that happens, please bear with us and be patient. We're going to try to get everything back on track as quickly as possible. And also you can see in the chat that I linked to our live stream on YouTube. So if you want to share that with anyone that doesn't want to actually join the webinar, and also if you are tweeting or sharing your experience of the event on social media, we're using the hashtag CityTechSF, which we've used on previous events that Lavelle started for us a number of years ago. So thanks everyone again. We'll get started with the first session in just a moment. As you'll see on the video window, I'll begin moving folks that you see right now off the screen and moving the first session's folks on the screen. And the first session for today is going to be a roundtable, Literary Afrofuturism in the 21st Century, moderated by Lisa Yasek from Georgia Tech. And we have contributors to that anthology of scholarship, Rebecca Holden, Isaiah Lavender III, Nadine Musami, and also Lisa Yasek will be there. So we'll get started with that in just a few minutes. If anybody does have any questions or need help with anything, you can reach out to us over chat. Okay? Thanks.